Good morning. So, it is fun to experience not winter here. You feel like, oh, this is what it's like when the sun's out and it's not raining and all those kinds of things. It also means, change in sports seasons and going to stuff like track meets and what track meets are like in New Hampshire as opposed to what they're like in Texas when you feel like you're melting, even though it's only May. In Dallas, it hit 98 degrees last week, and I was perfectly fine to not be there experiencing that. So, yay. If you have attended any kind of sporting event, like that they have different feels. It feels different to go to a baseball game than it does to go to a football game. It feels different to go to basketball or hockey. Those are indoors, so they're louder. Because those arenas are smaller, you really can't have a bad seat. But if you're going to a football game, you really can have a bad seat. Like, I actually think it's the worst sporting event to see in person. Like, just tuck this away for if you're ever there. Cowboys Stadium, not in Dallas, first of all, but secondly, not worth it, okay? The video board is so big because everything's bigger in Texas, and Jerry needs to do it a lot bigger than everybody else. That's the owner of the Cowboys. This thing is so big that everyone who goes, they say they just end up watching the board. They don't even watch the field. You're like, what's the point? I just spent $300 on parking, let alone, the tickets for the game. Golf, okay, professional golf is very different because there's no such thing as a seat. You're on an entire course. And you can't just follow like a certain golfer, especially if you're vertically challenged like me, because there's sometimes 50,000 people at these tournaments. And so if you tried and you got there at like hole 1, by the time you wanted to go to hole 2, you wouldn't have any room, so you wouldn't see anything. There is a specific tournament, a particular tournament, called the Ryder Cup, okay? This is the best golfers in the U.S. versus the best golfers in Europe. It's played every 2 years, but it alternates between being played in the U.S. and being played in Europe. So it's only here every 4 years. So that makes it kind of an event. And it's really an event. My younger brother, he's 4 years younger than me, at the time, he's in advertising, and his account was American Express, and specifically American Express's golf advertising. He headed that up. And so American Express being one of the major sponsors for the Ryder Cup, he had to be there. And me, wanting to be the supportive, good older brother, begged for tickets. And he got them for me. So me and a buddy, we go, and we end up staying in the same hotel as the players. Like, this was unreal. Imagine going to the Super Bowl, okay? And you're in the same, go back in time to when the Pats could get near one, and you're in the same hotel with the players. And you're riding the elevator with, Gronk, or you're passing Tom Brady as you're going to get in your car. That's what this was like. But it's 50,000 people, like I was saying. And the difference here is it's 12 golfers per team. So it's 50,000 people to just see this handful of folks. So I really had to be strategic in order to be able to enjoy the experience. Because we had this amazing access. There was the entrance for all the common people, and then there was the entrance for everyone who worked the tournament. And the folks who were working the tournament were long-time members of the club where it was being held. So I'm now allowed, because I've got this badge, to get in that entrance. And I remember walking up, and the guy looked at me like, I don't know you. You shouldn't be here. And I looked at him like, I don't care. Let me in. Europeans are everywhere, right? And you can tell who they are because of the clothes they're wearing. And you can tell who they are because of the flags they have draped around them. And you can tell who they are because of the languages they're speaking. And I'm a soccer fan. And I wanted to get into conversations with Europeans about soccer. So I had this Manchester United hat, and I wore it. Not because I'm really a fan, just because I wanted to get into conversations. And so I'm walking along one day, and this guy, it's three of them, they come up to me, and one of them says, "Why are you wearing that silly hat?" And then the other guy said, "It's not a silly hat." And then they started arguing with each other. And I said, "I'm so happy right now. This was exactly what I wanted." On Sunday, it's what they call Sunday singles. Instead of 2v2, it's 1v1. And my friend that I was with, we wanted the perfect spot, at least for the first part of the tournament. So we got there at 5 a.m. And we went to the putting green of hole 2. Why there? Because we could see the approach on 1, we could see the tee on 2, and then we could watch the guys putt. And I figure 5 a.m., we will be in the front row, like there's a rope. We will be right up against that rope. No, those folks were already there. So row 2 it is. But within a half hour, everyone had filled in. Like the people who were there, you turn around, it's 20 rows back by 5:30. The golfers didn't show up to that spot until 10 a.m. So I had to stand in a 1 foot by 1 foot place for 5 hours. Just so I could, well, be on ESPN, but also see these people doing their thing. It was incredible, the access that I had, but I also had to be strategic, and I had to make choices, and I had to persevere in order to enjoy the access that I'd been given. This may sound crazy, especially when you've got like 2,000 years separating now and then, and Hebrews is certainly not about anything, to do with golf. But this is exactly what the author of Hebrews is getting at as he begins his new train of thought in chapter 4, verse 14. After explaining in chapters 1 and 2 why Jesus is superior to angels, and then unpacking how the Lord is superior to Moses from the beginning of chapter 3 through to verse 13 of chapter 4, he's now going to dive into why Jesus is a superior high priest. And those words might not even make a whole lot of sense, and we're going to explain that. But these are his first thoughts. He's going to give us what he wants us to know about the priesthood of Jesus and what we should do in response, or as a result. So we're going to jump in. What does the author want us to know about the priesthood of Jesus? Again, it's Hebrews 4, and we're going to start in verse 14. I'm just going to jump into this verse right here. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. Structurally speaking, there is a command that is backed up with a rationale, all right? The command, let's hold firmly to our confession. It also means to grasp, to take possession of, okay? You could say, take hold, don't let go, take ownership of it. Like, you get the idea. The it is our confession. The Greek for that word is a combination of two words that means same message. So let's take that message, let's take that word that we all have in common, that we are believing together, and all of us together take hold of it This is the object of our faith, the person and work of Jesus Christ as the sole and sufficient means of salvation. What I'd like you to see, okay, is I want you to see this command in the context of all the other commands that have happened up to this point in the book of Hebrews. Okay, so from chapter 1, verse 1 through to this one, there have been 7. This, what I just read, let's hold firmly to our confession. This is number 7. And then there's number 8, which is in verse 16. So these are the commands that are there. Okay, this is how and what the author has exhorted us with up to this point. What they all have in common, okay, is that they speak to an active faith. We're not robots. We are not passengers simply along for the ride. We've been given a gift, and when we understand what it is we've been given, we've accepted it in trust out of gratitude, okay? We should want to do something with it. We should want to enjoy it. It's not a, we better do our part, okay? It's not Jesus plus works or Jesus plus the law or Jesus plus anything else. It is grace alone, by faith alone, in Christ alone, to the glory of God alone. What we're exhorted to do as believers is to grab hold and not let go, okay? Why? What is the rationale for the author asking that of his readers and subsequently God, asking it of us? It is because, if you look at the text, we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens. And if we're at all unsure about who that great high priest is, he says it. Jesus, the Son of God. Now, what does he mean by great? The word means mega, okay? That's literally the word, which makes me think of a monster truck rally. Like, he's not just high priest, he's our mega high priest. Like, that's the voice that I hear as I look at that. Jesus is great in and of himself. He is the very definition of greatness. But he's also great compared to the person who currently occupies the role. So in Judaism, there is one man at the top. He is the high priest. As long as the temple existed, there was a high priest. The temple of Jesus' day was destroyed in AD 70. But because Hebrews, which talks so much about the Jewish sacrificial system, never mentions that fact, because he never brings it up, it is highly, overwhelmingly likely that this is written before that event happens. So it's written before AD 70, okay? The high priest was someone whose job it was to go through a certain door, okay? Jesus passed through the heavens. The high priest, his responsibility was to pass through what's called the Holy of Holies. I want to show you a picture, okay? This is a model of the temple in Jerusalem in Jesus' day, okay? I think my son is wondering if it's made of Legos. No, it's not. You find this in, I think it's the Jerusalem Museum or the Museum of Israel in Jerusalem, okay? The large building on the right. If you go through those doors, that's the holy place. And inside there is another room called the most holy place, or the Holy of Holies. It's a perfect square. And there was a thick curtain that separated the two. In the days of the tabernacle, in the days of Solomon's temple, which was destroyed in 586 BC, in that small room, that Holy of Holies, sat the Ark of the Covenant. and God's presence rested on top of the Ark of the Covenant. If you've ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's amazing what Steven Spielberg has done for biblical studies. You get these two angels that are pointed towards each other. That's where the presence of God sits. Okay? The temple is destroyed in 586 BC. The ark disappears. It's never been seen since. In Jesus' day, there would have been a space, a square, a raised platform where it used to sit. And the high priest, okay, he's the only one that's ever allowed to go in that room. And he's only allowed to go in that room one day a year. And that day is the Day of Atonement. So what does the high priest have in his corner if we're comparing one to the other? He gets to pass through that curtain one day a year. Jesus, on the other hand, has passed through the heavens. And he's still there. And he's not in front of a cement square showing where the presence of God used to be. He is in the actual, literal, physical presence of God the Father, and he's there all the time. So Jesus is better. He is superior. Since he is superior, okay, to any human high priest, since he is great, since he is in God's presence continually, interceding for us, let's hold firmly to our confession. What does the author of Hebrews want us to know about the priesthood of Jesus? First, his supremacy should inspire our tenacity, okay? His supremacy should inspire our tenacity. We do not just have some rando as the high priest. We have the very expression of the invisible God, the exact representation of his being. We should take hold of that, of him, and never let go. We should commit ourselves with everything we have. Think of it as biting down with the force of a saltwater crocodile. And if you're like, why did you go there? Okay, because I looked it up. I looked up what has the strongest bite force in the entire animal kingdom. Saltwater crocodile. When you or me, I, take a bite of a steak, we are exerting about 150 pounds per square inch of pressure, of force. A saltwater crocodile. You never knew you were going to learn these things, did you? A saltwater crocodile, 3,700 PSI. Bite down with that kind of force. Okay? When it comes to what you believe, be a croc. All right? Not because there's anything awesome in ourselves. Though the hurricanes of hell might come our way, I will not let go. Not because there's anything great about me, but because of who I'm holding on to. Because my high priest has passed through the heavens into the presence of the Father. And he's making intercession for us. I'm not real sure what that conversation's like, but I think it goes something like this. You see what Brad just did? Again. You see who he is still after 30 years of being a Christian. I paid the price for him. I paid the penalty for her. His supremacy should inspire our tenacity, okay? Be a croc. When all you have to do because of Jesus is just be. Just be. Because he's done all the work. Verse 15. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin. This is both a further explanation of what makes Jesus great, but it's also the basis for the command that's to follow in verse 16. Okay? We don't have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses. Weakness also means sickness. The implication is that those who are living under the old covenant, those who are relying on a human high priest, they have one who can't sympathize. The double negative kind of makes it confusing. We have a high priest who can sympathize. If you live under the old covenant, you don't. Consequently, why would you want to return to that way of life? That's what the author is trying to get across. Why would you want to go anywhere other than Jesus? The high priest at the temple, the human guy, he doesn't know what your life is like. He doesn't walk the same streets as you. He has someone who helps him get dressed in the morning. He has someone who makes his food. He really doesn't live the life you live. If he wants a meeting with the Roman government, he gets one. They take him seriously. He doesn't understand you, but Jesus does. I think the word for sympathize is really interesting, not because necessarily of what it says in Greek, but because of what it means for us today. Like if we say that we sympathize with someone or we have sympathy, what we mean is, I feel for you. You're in my thoughts. You're in my thoughts and prayers. Like, could you have a little sympathy? Think about what this person's going through. Be gentle. Be kind. Be a little bit nicer because they are really having a difficult time. I don't think that's what it meant then. Because the word literally means suffer with. Suffer with. If I have sympathy, according to that definition, then I am willing to suffer with you. I'm willing to enter into your suffering with you. I'm allowing myself to feel what you feel, even though I don't have to, because I'm not experiencing the same thing you are. Like if you picture it that you are carrying a really, really heavy bag, like a heavy backpack, and you got to get up Kearsarge. To have sympathy in the biblical sense would not be to help you carry that bag. It would be to get my own bag of the same weight and put it on and walk up with you when I don't have to. I would be choosing to because I have sympathy. This is what the author means about Jesus. Instead of having someone who can't relate to your way of life, we have one, a high priest, who can sympathize with our weaknesses. He suffered by taking on the same limitations we have. I'm just talking about being human, okay? Needing food, needing water, needing sleep, needing to find a place to use the bathroom. It's the simple, everyday stuff we don't think about because he didn't have to do any of that. He could have felt hunger and then turned that off. He could have looked at the distance that he needed to walk and just decided to teleport. After his resurrection, he does that. But he could do it every single day of his life if he had wanted to. They were possibilities for Jesus, and he didn't take advantage of them. Like even when he was on the cross and experiencing a level of physical pain that I can't even conceive of, and honestly, I don't want to, he could have chosen to stop feeling it. He wouldn't even take the little bit of wine that they offered him on a sponge that would have served as a mild analgesic, because it was important to him to experience everything so that he could identify with us completely. It was his and his Father's will to experience everything we experience: limitation, pain, even temptation. okay? Because that's our biggest weakness, sin. It's our most serious sickness. Like before Christ, sin literally separated us from the Father. And then, even after we become Christians, that desire to sin is still in us. Like outwardly, temptation stalks us. And while Jesus did not have a sin nature, he could still be tempted. And there were plenty of people who wanted to see him fall. Which brings up a question, okay? So if Jesus wasn't born with a sin nature, if it wasn't possible for him to sin, is it a real temptation? Like, is it fair? Is it fair to say that Jesus felt the same things we do? And I'm going to say yes, and here's why. He was singularly unique. There has never been another person like Jesus on the face of the earth, and there never will be, because he was fully human and fully God at the same time, 100% both, without confusion, without separation, okay? And that's a little bit difficult to get our minds around, but it's still true. The way Jesus lived his life was by embracing it with his humanity, and from time to time, his deity. Paul in Philippians says that Jesus emptied himself. What does that mean? It means that he had access to being and unleashing God onto everyone he ever met all the time, but he didn't. What they saw was his humanity, punctuated by moments of his deity. And so when he faced temptation, he did it with his humanity by choice. Like, yes, I know I can just look at the devil and flick him in the forehead and he'll go away. But I'm not going to do that. Because I want you to understand that I know how you feel, and I really know how you feel all the time. So what should be our response to someone who has been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin, to someone who has suffered with us in all of our weaknesses? Verse 16, therefore let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. His supremacy should inspire our tenacity. His sympathy should encourage our familiarity. Here's what I mean by that, okay? I want you to think for a minute about the book of Esther, okay? Where Esther has to go before her husband, the king, because her entire community of people are at risk. Their lives are going to end soon. And so she needs to make a plea before the king. But there's this thing about just going into the throne room to see the king. She tells her uncle that when you walk in that room, if he does not extend the golden scepter to you, you die. That doesn't inspire confidence. That inspires terror. That makes you think a lot about what you say, about what you don't say, about whatever nonverbals you might be giving off. It's walking on eggshells, and you know what that's like. You know people who are like time bombs. And so you are petrified about what you're going to say around them or what they might think. But that's not God. Let us draw near with confidence. So confidence is not like, I've got it going on. It's not walking into the throne room and saying, yo, daddy, what's up? Hey, basketball handshake with all the things. Confidence means loose tongue. It means freedom of speech. It means being willing to say, being able, and therefore being willing, to say whatever you want. Not so much, hey, dude, but God, why are you doing this? Why did you let this happen? What was the point to any of this? We don't have to fear saying any of that. Okay? Remember what comes right before this. Verse 13, okay, before this section. There is no creature hidden from his sight, from God's sight, but all things are open and laid bare to the eyes of him with whom we have to do. God knows everything there is about us. He knows what we're thinking. He knows what we're feeling. He knows our intentions and our motives. He knows the little tricks we try to play when it comes to prayer. Hey, God, you know I've never really asked you for anything big. I've been saving it up so I could ask you for the big thing now. He knows all of that. And yet says, come before me and say whatever you want. Tell me whatever you're thinking. Unload what you're feeling. Why? Because we are accepted. I had a friend once who had a lot of horses. And we go over to his house, he and his wife, and they say, do you want to come see the horses? Sure. Let's go see the horses. So we go out, and it's not like in a pen, it's in a field. The horses surrounded me. Okay? Then this one, he was gray, he starts headbutting me. Like with, the horse just kind of walking into me and hitting me in the face. I'm like, what is happening right now? And the guy said, well, the horse can smell fear. Let's make a list of all the things that don't make me feel less fearful. You're not going to find telling me that on the list. So now it becomes this cycle, okay, where the horse is hitting me because I'm afraid, which makes me more afraid. So now what's up? I'm getting bullied by a horse. That's not God. We don't have to worry about any of that. We are supposed to approach with confidence. Say what you want to say. God can take it. Not just because he's big and powerful, but because he has completely and totally accepted us. Let us hold firmly to our confession. Let us approach the throne of grace with confidence. He is telling us to come as we are because we will be received by someone who understands. If I was going to sum all of this up, okay, and I did, here's how I see it. Dig in by drawing near and drinking deep. Dig in by drawing near and drinking deep. What do I mean by dig in? I mean take your heels and plant them. Decide today, here, right now, I will not be moved. No matter what comes my way, I will not give up. Even if I feel nothing, I will praise my Father in heaven. Even if I don't want to, I will, because I know it's the right thing to do, and you will not move me. Not because anything is so great in me. I don't have anything. But it's because of the one we've placed our confidence in. Confidence, okay, in anything other than Christ is cockiness. And it's an illusion. It's the emperor with no clothes. We just say, I'm confident because I'm confident I'm going to keep being confident. That's Tony Robbins. That stuff is exhausting. If you have no idea who he is, you're doing better off, okay? I'd rather have something I'd have confidence in something tangible and real, and that's Jesus. Okay? You guys understand what ski boots and bindings do for you? If I say that in Texas, like 5 people understand. You know that when you are locked in, it doesn't matter what your ankles do because they're not going anywhere. That's Jesus. Dig in. Decide today to stand firm, and then do it again tomorrow. And then do it again the next day. Because the one you're standing on isn't going anywhere. Dig in by drawing near. Come to Jesus. Come with confidence. I want you to think about Adam and Eve for a minute. And that there is a difference between guilt and conviction. When Adam and Eve fell, they hid themselves. Because that's what guilt does. Guilt equals shame. Shame is, I don't want to be around you because I feel ashamed. And so guilt separates. You can't possibly love me. You can't possibly love me. My watch just answered me. You can't possibly want to have anything to do with me. That's guilt. That's shame. That's not conviction. Conviction brings us near. Where the Spirit says, I know you did something wrong. I know you fell, but do you understand that when you fell, you never hit the ground? Because I was holding you the entire time. This enables us to drink deep. It says that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. I will tell you what I wish that said. That you will receive whatever you want. I wish it said that you will receive whatever you ask. Folks, when you are praying for healing, that's what you want. Okay? Jesus looked at Peter once and he said, you know what Satan has asked about like all of you? He's asked to sift you like wheat. What I want from Jesus in that moment is, and I said no. He didn't do that. He said, and I prayed for you. I'll take it. Okay, it's Jesus. But I want what I want. Okay? And this isn't about like selfishness and I wish I was driving a Tesla. I'm talking about family. I'm talking about my wife. What it says we receive is mercy and grace. And I don't always know what that feels like. But I believe that it's there because I have chosen to believe. Because I am placing my trust in the one who wrote the words. And I'm not talking about the author, I'm talking about God. What we have learned from the author about the priesthood of Jesus is that his supremacy should inspire our tenacity, and that his sympathy should encourage our familiarity. So let's dig in, draw near, and drink deep. Because what we get from God is not rationed out to us. He came that we might have life and have it abundantly, which doesn't mean abundant happiness. It means God. It means we get him, and we get purpose, and we get meaning, and we know that this is not the end. dig in, draw near, drink deep. With what we have this morning, I think it is a particularly good time. When Jesus was with his disciples on the night right before the roller coaster started to head down the hill, they were in the midst of Passover. And he took the bread and he took the cup. That were these things that these guys had done every year their entire life. And he said, this is going to be something completely different. What you've been doing up until now has pointed to this, but I want you to understand what's really happening. This is my body broken for you. This is my blood shed for you. This will be my blood shed for you. And by partaking in it, we get to experience the fellowship that we have with him. We get to rejoice in the fellowship we have with him. And the fellowship that we have with one another. Because we do this together. I'm going to pray. Ask the deacons to come up. We'll pass the bread. We'll take the bread. We'll pass the cup. We'll take the cup. As it's coming to you, take time and talk to God. Take time and draw near. Take time and drink deep. Because he is there and he is real. And this is what he's asked us to do. Father in heaven, I really do thank you for your word. I thank you for who you are, who you have always been, and the fact that that is who you will always be. That Jesus, you are the same yesterday, today, and forever. Thank you for giving us the gift of the table, that we can do this in response to what we have seen revealed from you in your word. I pray that our response would be to come to you. That no matter what, no matter the things in our past, even if we're talking about the last 5 minutes, no matter how we feel, no matter if we feel hurt or disappointed or angry, that we would still draw near because you tell us to, because we're accepted. Thank you for your body broken for us. Thank you for your blood shed for us. In Jesus' name.